Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, once again your host, because nobody else will do it for what we pay, which is nothing. So here we are. Go down, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment if you want to leave a comment. We like and we respond to all comments. If they're a question we can possibly answer, go to the About section. You'll go down and even to our website. One word, Legend of the Superstition Mountains. .com. You will find hats. You can find hats like this rendezvous hat. Yeah, that's really cool. You can find this Legend of Superstition Mountains hat in tan. You can find in black this Legend of Superstition Mountains hat and this awesome looking tan Dutch Hunter's Rendezvous shirt. Speaking of the rendezvous, we will be going out to the rendezvous on the 4th, 5th, and 6th of November at the Don's Camp. More information on that upcoming. There is a video you can look at for it's the Don's Camp or the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous video. Shows you the trip in and where the campsite is and kind of shows you all the amenities and things that are there. That being said and done, let's get to today's video. Oh, Mo, one last thing to add. Again, we're still on that whole thing about just making people aware. Anyone going out, starting to hike, out by the Needle Vista Viewpoint, or at First Water going north out of there, you're back in that section and all. Keep an eye out. They're still looking for Cayman Welch, so we will continue to stay on that. Hopefully this fall. I don't know if we'll be of any help, but hopefully that'll we'll get some people out there and they'll find the remains and get some closure for the family. That being said and done, now we move on. So we're going to go back, and I'm going to sometime have to sit down and go through a lot of stuff in my head and work out the dates and times, because I can tell you this is sometime 89 to 91, somewhere in there. And I know it was because of the time period, what I was doing and working, and what I was doing currently at the time. I ran into a guy I had known. His name was Smitty, and his last name was Smith, but we called him Smitty. And I knew a lot of people. I actually knew several Smiths, and their nickname became Smitty all the time. And he was a Smitty, and he was a guy around my age. And he got hooked up with some people, and they were out in an area digging up something. And he talked to me about it and knew I kind of the superstitions, but what they wanted me for was because at that time I was working like concrete work, doing a lot of trenching work, rebar work for concrete pours and curbing. And they were looking for some guys out there for muscle labor. And I suppose I kind of fit the bill at the time. I was used to the heat, the weather. I worked outside all the time. I kind of worked on it, and it was about it having shares, so everybody just split everything out there. And he took me out. It was out towards Reed's Water. Abe Reed's kind of work, but it wasn't Abe Reed's working. There was a little low-lying hill area, and kind of worked out to a flat. And I went out there, and they had this guy, I can't remember his name, don't know what it was, I can't even remember what they called him. It was like a nickname thing they called him, like Smitty. Anyways, I guess everybody had nicknames. I never really had nicknames. So they're out there, and I met this old guy. And he wasn't probably as old as I think he was, because you have to remember, he might have been in his 40s. But the 40s, 30 years ago, was kind of like 60s today. I mean, people aged from the labor, the hard work, and everything they went through in life. And looking back, I thought he was an older guy, but then I was a young guy. And at the same token, he'd probably put a lot of time in doing whatever he was doing and wore himself down. So he was gray-haired, looked older and so forth. But he probably wasn't out of his 40s. Worse, he could have been his early 50s. And he was out there, and he was the one that found this spot. And he got these guys interested in going out there and helping him. And I went out, and I was kind of, okay, what are we doing out here and all? And they had an area they were working. They weren't plastering quite. They weren't load mining. They were basically had this work in this trench, but they had to work it by hand. Couldn't get any equipment in where they were. So I went out, and what they were doing is this guy would actually take charges, and he would blow a section of the ground up. And then you take pickaxes and shovels and dig it out, and they were dry washing down off to the side. They had a generator. And it was loud. It was dusty. So you'd, pick the stuff out, take the bigger rocks out. They'd go through and they'd dry wash. And so I was really curious, because how's this going to work? And they said, well, what we do is we run this, and we've been getting some gold. And, it's funny. Anybody that works in an area of the prospect, they get a claim or something, they talk about getting some good gold out of there. And I didn't know what good gold was. I had no idea. So I'm just out kicking in the labor, thinking I'm going to make a few extra bucks. And gold probably in the early 90s, there's probably about $350 to $400 an ounce. So that time period, so it's not really, but you got to remember, minimum wage is probably $3.50, $4 an hour, somewhere in there. So in the relevance, it wasn't bad, and if you could find a couple ounces, but I had no clue. Okay, I'm pretty much, when it came to that end of it, prospecting, that type of thing, I was kind of a lot of greenhorn in me. But the other problem is, I also knew enough to say, why are you digging here? Because I didn't quite get it. Wasn't near a wash. There was a wash, but it was a bit of a distance away. And so I started asking questions, and this older guy, this prospect guy, did not like that. I'd be like, well, what are you getting? How does this work? Because I'd never seen a dry washer up close and running, which I didn't want to spend much time near it, because as bad as it was out there and we were digging around, that thing was even worse. And you get over by it, and he'd be like, well, you just leave it alone. You know how it works? Well, then you don't need to know nothing. Just leave this alone. And I'm thinking, well, I understand we can't haul water in, but so there became a couple problems, because they had this dry washer, and I don't know where they put it, because we'd be out there for a few days, and then I would head back, and I knew they weren't staying out there all the time, and I went out there probably 4 or 5 times, and they would go into like a pawn shop or someplace like that, or jewelry store, and sell the gold they would get. And it couldn't have been much, because I think the first time I went out there and worked, my share was like $5. And there's only like 5, 6 guys. So I'm like, we're not making very much. And I wasn't sure if how that was working. And I was like, well, is there a way this is splitting, the way this is working, the way it's divided up, and then of course that got me in trouble. What, you don't trust us? Well, I'm just, I never seen any gold. And you're showing me stuff and saying, yeah, there's some gold in this, but I'm not really ever seeing gold. And it's mainly dust. It's, so it's real fine stuff, whatever they're finding. And I can't believe they're finding that much, in my opinion. Well, then it would rain. And then, of course, when it rains, it gets muddy. And you can't do dry washing with mud. So you'd have to take everything and wait for it to dry off, and then it's clumped, and then we got to break it up and break it down. And it was just a tedious process. Plus, they'd start working, and then there wouldn't be anything, and they'd say, well, we need to go this way. So we'd crook off and go this way. And it was very tedious of, like, we're just digging this trench, and we're creating some sort of open trench as we go around down on the ground. And I would show up, and it would be going a different direction. And then there was one time, actually, they started something brand new. And because I showed up, I figured, well, at least we had all this stuff worked out. So now I'll show up, and we'll just start breaking that down and getting that over to the dry washer. Well, I got back, they'd already switched to a different spot. So it was back to the pickaxe and stuff, which is a grind. I mean, if anybody that's done it, if you're just spending most of your day just pickaxing and breaking stuff down and shoveling, it's pretty hard work. And but I went out there and I did it, and we would do it, and then I would go back, and then the next time I'd come out, they'd give me like, a $10 bill, and I'd be like, huh, well, that was, last week. And I'd be like, so I'm kind of running through my mind, because even with minimum wage, if you're working 8 hours a day, you're still making $30-40 if you're a minimum wage worker. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm putting 2-3 days in, and I'm making $10. So I've made like $20, $25. I don't know what's going on here. So then, of course, I said, well, what are we pulling out of there? How much do you guys have some sort of idea? Is this getting to some better gold? Because you said it was good gold, and I don't mind coming out, but I'm spending more in gas going to and from here than I'm actually getting out of this, and it doesn't seem like things are getting any better. What, you don't trust us? You think we're getting something? No, it's just if we're not getting better gold. So I kept going through that and that. And then finally I went out and there was nobody there. And there was all this places they dug up, and it rained, and the generator's gone, and the whole dry washer's gone, and you can see, but there was no trash. They picked all the trash up. And I just looked around and was like, well, nobody even told me. So I kind of was out there and I was digging around and kind of looking around at, what was anything there. And the old guy shows up and he was just like fit to be tied. What are you doing here? Well, nobody told. I've been coming out, came out to see what you guys were doing, and he was just fit to be tied. The difference was I had a sidearm. He did not. So I think that was the only reason he really didn't come at me at the time, because I was just a kid still. I mean, it's 1990 and, I'm older, but, it was different times. A younger man did show a certain due respect to an older man and so forth. So I was kind of like, you guys were out here. I was coming out to do my thing. I don't know where you guys went. Nobody called me. Nobody told me. So he's throwing a fit, and I finally decided I'm just going to get out of here. I told him, you know what? And well, he said, what'd you take? What'd you get? I said, there's nothing here. I said, I was just looking around to see if you guys did anything new, what was going on. I don't know why you guys pulled up. And he's looking around, and I said, everything's gone. I said, I don't even know why you're here, why I'm here. And then, I was starting to get defensive because it was that you're really starting to kind of wear on me of just asking me a lot of questions, and I don't know what's going on. So he was getting kind of more and more wound up, and I just said, you know what, I'm just walking out of here. I'm going to head back and get out. And then, of course, he said, well, I had someone drop me off. I'm kind of stranded out here. And I said, I don't know what to tell you. And he said, well, I expected someone to be in camp. And I said, I don't got nothing. I'm just going to head out since there's no camp. I'm heading back. I'm done. Well, can you give me a ride? Now, I'm thinking, this guy has just been like up my ass this whole time. And I'm kind of really irritated. And I just want to get out of there and go, because I want to call my buddy Smitty and say, what happened, man? Why didn't anybody call me? Because I knew they didn't hit the mother lode or anything. And I was trying to be a good guy because I realized, shit, this guy's going to have to walk a couple hours out of here. Once he does the 2-3 hour walk, he doesn't have a ride, and there's no cell phones back then. So he's got to find someone to give him a ride, or he's got to walk all the way into town. So I was like, okay, you know what? If you're ready to go, I'm going. I'm heading out. And we walked, and I tried to keep him always a little ahead of me as we walked. I wouldn't walk ahead of him because I wasn't trusting him. I just got this bad feeling. And we got walking. We didn't talk much all the way out. We just kind of like, he'd just say something about, I can't believe those guys left us high and dry. Like it was us now, where before it was just like him and me, but I just didn't care. I was bummed out. Everybody's gone. I kind of wasted my time out there. It's basically a whole day wasted driving out there, walking out, and so we get back, got in, I gave him a ride. He lived in Mesa. So he told me where he lived. I didn't know the town back then to know the area in Mesa, so he had to tell me which way to drive. And as we're doing it, he's just, man, I can't believe those guys left us out there. That's some shit. He was really still worked up. But now I was his friend. And so we pulled over, and there was these like apartment cottage things that are together. Most of us would call them sheds. But they were concrete block, but they had a door and a front window. And they looked like they probably had probably room for a bed, and there was a kitchenette or something in it, and there was a door. Couldn't have been more room than that. They couldn't have been bigger than 10 by 12, 10 by 14. And they were all one next to each other. Looked like little motel places. That's where he lived. Dropped him off in the parking lot there. And just remember, he got out, said, you want to come on in, have a cup of coffee? Nah, I'm going to get home. I got a long drive. I got to drive still to the West Valley. Told him, no, good luck to you. I never remember the guy's name. I don't think I never addressed him by name. And he waved and said, okay, nice, nice. Thanks for the ride, fella, and all this. And he goes inside. So I drove home, got home. I'm pretty particularly kind of disturbed because I did go out of my way, and it's like, crap, at least I was getting my gas money out of this. Now I didn't even get that. So I get home, call the guy Smitty. He says, I don't know what happened. The guy had the dry washer gave up. The guy with the generator gave up. Everybody came out, grabbed their stuff. They were frustrated, said there was nothing coming out of there. He said the last time we were out there, he said we made $10 or $15, but to keep you and a couple of the other people that were helping out, we were giving you guys like $5-10 to keep you coming. So he said there was never a time we made more than $5 or $10. We were literally out of our own pockets handing you cash to make you guys think something was coming out of there. And he said there was nothing. And I asked him about the old guy. I said, nobody told him. He said, well, you don't have a phone. There's no way to let him know. And none of us knew where he lived. And I said, well, I told him what happened and I'd found him out there. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that all came of and which one of the guys knew him and how he got us all involved in this. So years later, I went back out because I wanted to go check it out. And most of it had washed in, but it didn't look like anybody ever touched it. And sometimes someone will say, why don't you go back to a spot like that or take a sample? But from what I learned in the end is there was never probably anything there. I don't know if the old guy thought he found something or just got in their ear and he kind of thought there might be something there and convinced them. And the old saying, you can convince someone else, then you can convince yourself. And almost halfway going into that. And I think that's what's kind of happened. Because by the time it got to me, they were getting good gold. I found out in the end that they might have got a little bit of dust, but they got really no gold out of there. And this is out by Abe Reed's mine between there and Reed's Water. And, like I said, I was just a young guy. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about the mineralization. I didn't know anything about the area. I didn't know what to look for. I was trying to learn. So my thing was, okay, I'll go out with these guys and I'll learn something from them because they know what they're doing. And they were just doing these trenches. And I've seen where people have done that, cut trenches and stuff and dug out and worked stuff under the surface. But I never understood what we were exactly doing. We never went deeper than probably 2 feet, 2.5 feet. And it was just, I don't understand to this day. I couldn't tell you what any of the cuts meant or anything. There was just nothing there I could learn from. And the geology, there's just nothing to this day. Now I know Abe Reed might have gotten a little something out of his mind, but it couldn't have been anything major. And I certainly know they didn't. So it was a lesson to be learned. But the lesson to be learned there was I didn't know enough to know and not to waste my time for 3 or 4 or 5 weekends or 3-day weekends or whatever I did out there. And while I did get some gas money for it, was the learning experience of kind of more understand what, not only what you're doing, but ask questions. I asked questions and that's what started getting me out. But I was still stupid enough to keep going back out. It's like, I don't think these guys are getting any gold. I don't know if they're being honest with me. I have no clue what we're doing. And they're not explaining anything. I'm just a monkey with a shovel and a pickaxe just digging through this stuff. And I don't think I've learned one thing since I've been here other than this is a lot harder and I'm making less money doing this than when I do it Monday through Friday. And that was probably the biggest lesson is that I've always carried through life is whatever I'm doing, if I work hard and do well and I get paid well, it's so much better than anything else. If you put your Monday through Friday in, you're going to have some money to do something else. And sometimes a little good fortune, a good luck, or good common sense will pay off something in the end. So that's this week's story. It's kind of a common sense story, right? I should have had the common sense never to go back out there after the first time. The second time, I should have picked up a book. I was smart enough to pick up a book, but I never did. I kept putting my kind of trust into these people that I knew one guy and I kind of knew another guy, and there's this old guy, and he must know what he's doing because he's out there directing traffic and stuff. And it looked really good, and I'm sure it's what happened with people with Chuck Crawford and Crazy Jake and stuff. This guy, nobody had any money, and then I learned in the end they're basically out of their own pockets trying to keep the people around because I think they self-induced, convinced themselves there was something to all this, and there wasn't. So basically it was just a losing proposition for everybody involved, and there was no con because nobody took advantage of anybody really in it. We put a bunch of wasted labor in it. So there you go. If you're ever out there between Reed's Water and Abe Reed's old mine and stuff, Well, be careful, Abe reads mine, because there's still some old dynamite and some blasting caps and stuff can be found around there. At least there was years ago. If you're out there and you see a bunch of weird lined, somebody was plowing through there or something, that's that old spot, and I don't know what they called it. Don't know if they filed a claim. I don't know if they legally could file their claim. I have no idea. All I know is I was hired, and I made about $25 over a month or so digging in the dirt out there, which I could have made just going to work on a Monday. Actually, I would have made more money on work on a Monday. But there you go. There's the common sense rule. Hope everybody enjoys it. I hope everybody's having a great week and catch us on the live. Trying to bring in guests, try to do something else on the lives. People are like, well, we want to know when you're doing lives. There's kind of schedule. It's not kind of like that because I got to work with everybody else's schedule. So I know I can be there Fridays, but I don't know what everybody else is doing. And I try to get a hold of them weeks at a time. And that's just the way it is. A lot of times, even with these, we don't know exactly where we're going or what we're doing because Trevor and I will go back and forth and have arguments of what I think should be in this, or he'll think I just need to tell a story, or there'll be something in historical context I want to do and he's not sure of. So we go back and forth till we end up basically sometimes at a stalemate, and I just sit down and start spinning a yarn and he has to live with it. And that's kind of where we kind of ended up today. Is I thought, I know what I can talk about. I'll talk about that because it's a good story. I think it's a good thing to everybody put in their craw when they're dealing with people, whether they know them or not, kind of when you're working in those unique situations. It's not a negative thing. It's not a positive thing. It's just kind of, it's a thing you have to live with. So until next week, I hope everybody enjoyed this. I hope everybody has a warm and wonderful week before we get to the fall, because it's going to stay warm for all of us, I think, for a little while longer. And until the next time I see you on this Friday Live, I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Chasing Legends.